So you want to own an airport? Pick a city, pour the concrete, paint the lines, sell the slots to the airlines. The customers arrive on their own. The schedules are public. The passengers have nowhere else to go. But here's the strange part. Owning an airport is one of the few businesses on the planet where 1 billion customers a year can still leave you bankrupt. By the end of this video, you'll know where the money actually comes from inside an airport, why the runway is the cheapest part of the business, and why most airport owners are losing the wrong game. Airports come in 3 sizes, and they're 3 completely different businesses. A small regional airport in a place like Wyoming or Central France costs $50 to $200 million. For that money, you get a single runway, a small terminal, a parking lot, and maybe 3 to 5 flights a day to a hub. Most of these places are owned by local governments and survive on subsidies. Profit is not the point. Connectivity is the point. The town pays so the town stays on the map. A national hub is a different animal. Think Denver International, which opened in 1995 for $4.8 billion, $2 billion over budget. A real terminal complex, dozens of gates, road and rail access, a workforce in the tens of thousands, customers driving in from 3 states away. And then there's the mega hub. Istanbul Airport opened in 2018 for around $12 billion. Hamad International in Doha cost about $16 billion. Beijing Daxing came in around $17 billion. These are not buildings. They are small cities with runways attached. But the construction cost is just the start. 2 more costs nobody warns you about. The first is the license. Except in the airport world, they don't call it a license. They call it a concession. Most major airports outside the United States are not owned outright by the operator. They are leased from the state, usually for 30 to 50 years. Heathrow operates on a private concession. GMR Group runs Delhi's airport on a 60-year lease that started in 2006. When the lease ends, the building goes back to the government. You're not buying the airport. You're renting the right to operate it. The second cost is geopolitics. Airports are sovereign infrastructure. Dubai built DXB in the 1960s because the rulers knew the oil would eventually run out, and they needed a second economy. Today, DXB handles 87 million passengers a year. China has built more than 80 new airports since 2010 and plans to operate 450 by 2035. These are not commercial decisions. These are national projects, which means the bidding is political, the approvals are political, and the operator is whoever the government allows in the room. Even the smallest country understands the same thing every big country does. An airport is a piece of national territory that prints foreign currency, controls who enters, and decides which airlines get to exist in the local sky. That's why governments give them up reluctantly, charge them carefully, and watch them constantly. So, you've got the building, you've got the concession, you've got the runway, the gates, the staff. The planes are landing. Now we get to the question that actually matters. Where does the money come from? The obvious answer is the airlines. Airlines pay landing fees. Airlines pay gate fees. Airlines pay for parking their aircraft overnight, and all of that is true. But the obvious answer is also the wrong answer. The airlines are not the customer. The airlines are the delivery system. The actual customer is sitting in seat 15B, scrolling through their phone, waiting for boarding, and about to spend money they don't even remember spending. Every major airport on Earth earns money in 2 completely different ways, and the split is not what you'd guess. The industry calls them aeronautical revenue and non-aeronautical revenue. Aeronautical is everything the airlines pay you. Landing fees, gate fees, passenger service charges, aircraft parking. Non-aeronautical is everything the passenger pays you. Retail, food, duty-free, parking, car rentals, advertising, real estate, lounges. At a well-run major airport, the split is roughly 45% aeronautical and 50% non-aeronautical. At the best-run ones, non-aeronautical climbs past 60%. The passengers, not the planes, are the business. Easiest way to picture it, imagine a passenger pays $300 for a ticket from Frankfurt to Madrid. Of that $300, the airline keeps most of it. The airport sees maybe $25 split between the landing fee and the passenger service charge. That's the aeronautical side. Now, the same passenger arrives at the terminal 3 hours early because the airline told them to. They check a bag. They pass through security. They sit at a gate with nothing to do for 90 minutes. They buy a coffee, a sandwich, a bottle of perfume, a phone charger. Total spend? $40. The airport keeps a share of every single transaction. That $40 passenger just paid the airport more than the $25 plane did. Now, multiply that by 80 million passengers a year. The numbers stop being theoretical. Dubai duty-free generated around $2 billion in retail revenue in 2023. That's one shop chain. Inside one airport, Heathrow earns more retail revenue per passenger than any major airport in the United States, partly because British passengers spend, and partly because Heathrow designed the building around it. Singapore Changi runs a shopping district so large it has waterfalls, gardens, and a butterfly enclosure attached to the gates. The terminal is the storefront, the runway is the marketing. Then, there's parking. At a major U.S. hub, parking can generate $150 to $300 million a year. Atlanta makes more from its parking garages than some small regional airports make from everything combined. Add car rentals. Add advertising on jet bridges and baggage carousels. Add airport hotels. Add the real estate around the terminal that the airport leases to logistics companies and freight handlers. None of it has anything to do with planes. And here's a part that breaks people's brains. The longer you keep the passenger inside the building, the more the math works. The industry calls it dwell time. Dwell time is the product. Every minute a passenger spends past security, before boarding, is a minute they might buy something, which is why airports do not want you to arrive on time. They want you to arrive early. They want the security line to feel a little stressful, so you get through it fast and then have an hour to fill. They want the gate to be a 12-minute walk from the duty-free zone. They want you tired, slightly anxious, and slightly relieved. That is the most profitable customer in the building. So now, look at the architecture. Walk through any major international terminal. Notice anything? After security, you don't go to your gate. You're funneled into a winding path through duty-free, whether you want to or not. The seats before the retail zone are limited. The seats after the retail zone are plentiful. The signage to your gate is just vague enough that you have to look up, which means you look across, which means you see the shops. There are no clocks on the walls in most retail zones. There are no straight lines from security to gate. The industry has a term for it: forced retail flow. The psychology is even sharper than the architecture. A passenger past security is a captive consumer. They cannot leave. They cannot price compare. They have idle time. They have anxiety that needs relieving. They have foreign currency they want to get rid of. And they have a small, fixed window in which a purchase feels like a reward for surviving the airport itself. The industry knows exactly how much that passenger will spend, broken down by nationality, route, and time of day. Chinese passengers at Heathrow spend roughly 4 times what British passengers spend. Brazilian passengers at Miami spend more on cosmetics than any other group. The data is granular, and the layouts follow the data. And at the very top of this pyramid sit the premium passengers: business class, first class, frequent flyers, lounge members. They don't shop in the same way, but they generate something even more valuable: airline loyalty, which translates into slot demand. A slot is the right to land or take off at a specific airport at a specific time. At a saturated hub like Heathrow, a single pair of slots, one landing and one departure, has sold between airlines for over $75 million. The airport doesn't sell the slots directly, but the airport's value is built on the fact that those slots exist and are scarce. The premium passenger is what makes airlines fight for those slots, which is what lets the airport charge what it charges. So, here's the whole revenue model in one sentence: passenger volume multiplied by dwell time, multiplied by spend per minute, multiplied by repeat traffic, and every single design choice in the building, from the carpet pattern to the gate placement to the security line layout, exists to maximize one of those 4 numbers. The runway is bait. The terminal is the trap. The passenger is the product. And the airline, the thing most people think the airport is built for, is just the courier service that drops the product off at the door. So, with all this guaranteed traffic, all this captive spending, All this engineered architecture. Why do airport owners ever lose money? The short answer is everything else. Out of every dollar of airport revenue, an enormous portion is gone before the operator sees anything. A well-run major airport runs on a 15 to 25% net margin. So, out of $2 billion in revenue, you keep around $300 to $500 million. Where does the rest go? About a third disappears into operations. A mega hub employs 40 to 60,000 people across the airport ecosystem. And even though most of them work for airlines or contractors, the operator carries thousands directly. Security, ground services, fire crews, maintenance, IT. Another huge chunk goes to the concession fee, the rent the operator pays the government every year for the right to be there. In some countries, that's 10 to 20% of gross revenue, gone before any expense. Then there's the stuff most people never think about. A runway has to be resurfaced every 10 to 15 years at $30 to $80 million per strip. Terminals need refurbishing every 20 years. Security technology has to be replaced every time the threat picture shifts, and the bill is never small. A single new baggage handling system at a major hub costs $200 to $400 million. Snow removal at a northern airport runs tens of millions a year in equipment and labor. Bird control, wildlife management, noise abatement payments to surrounding neighborhoods. Airports also get sued more than almost any commercial building of their size. Slips, falls, missed flights, lost luggage, delayed connections, accessibility complaints, discrimination claims. The liability insurance premiums climb every year. The guaranteed top line is real. Everything below it is a fistfight. That fistfight is where most airport operators lose, and it has a small set of repeat patterns. Airports can fail for a lot of reasons, but two mistakes show up over and over again. Mistake 1. Too much debt, with a delivery timeline that turns into a scandal. In 2006, Berlin began construction on a new airport called Berlin-Brandenburg. Original budget, $2 billion. Original opening date, 2011. It actually opened in 2020, 9 years late, at a final cost above $7 billion. By the time it opened, the operator was carrying debt service that ate most of the projected operating profit for the first decade. Kansai International Airport in Japan, built on an artificial island that began sinking before it opened, carried so much debt that for years the interest alone exceeded operating income. Don't build an airport on debt that assumes the project will be perfect. No airport project is perfect. Mistake 2. Wrong product for the market. This one has killed a lot of buildings. In 2013, Sri Lanka opened Matala Rajapaksa International Airport in the south of the country, a $209 million project, funded mostly by Chinese loans. It had a capacity of 1 million passengers a year. In its first full year, it served around 21,000. Journalists started calling it the world's emptiest international airport. Wildlife wandered onto the runway. The terminal had more staff than passengers. The traffic the government had projected simply did not exist. Ciudad Real in Spain opened in 2008 at a cost of over $1 billion. By 2012, it was closed. In 2015, it was auctioned off for around $10,000. If you're going to build an airport, make sure somebody actually wants to fly there. Step back for a second. The economics of this industry are paradoxical. An airport has one of the most predictable revenue mechanisms in business. Passenger volumes grow with global GDP. Routes are sticky. Slots are scarce. Retail spend per passenger is forecastable down to the nationality of the traveler. And yet, airport operators go bankrupt, get restructured, and get bailed out at rates that would embarrass a normal infrastructure business. Why? Because the math only works at scale and over decades. Every major airport takes 12 to 20 years to pay back its construction. The concession fee is rigid. The debt is rigid, which means everything outside the math has to also be perfect. Your route mix, your retail mix, your government, your timing. Time to pull it all together and answer the actual question. How much money do you make if you do this right? 2 scenarios, real numbers. Scenario 1. A small regional airport, $150 million build, annual revenue around $15 million, mostly from a mix of landing fees, parking, and a single cafe. After all operational costs and debt service, your real profit is around $3 million a year. Payback, 15 to 20 years, often only achievable with public subsidy. Not glamorous, not really a business, the most boring infrastructure asset in the country. Scenario 2, a mega hub on a 40-year concession. $15 billion build, 80 million passengers a year, 150 retail outlets, 30,000 parking spaces, and a real estate portfolio around the terminal. Annual revenue, around $5 billion. And here's a fun fact most people miss. Only 1/3 of that comes from the airlines. The other 2/3 is retail, parking, real estate, advertising, and lounges. A modern mega hub is barely an airport. It's a shopping and logistics complex that uses runways as the loss leader to pull customers in. Net profit after everything, $1 to $1.5 billion a year. Payback, 12 to 18 years. Then, you're earning $1 billion a year on a building the government technically owns. And if you survive long enough, you become something specific. Fraport runs Frankfurt and holds stakes in 30 airports across 4 continents. Heathrow's private consortium, which includes Qatar Investment Authority and a Spanish infrastructure group, has earned billions in dividends over the last decade. GMR Group in India started with a single airport concession in Hyderabad in 2006, and now operates terminals in Delhi, Goa, Cebu, and Medan, with a market value in the billions. So if you do decide to own an airport, just remember the most important rule of this business. The planes are the bait. The passengers are the product. The runway is the cheapest thing in the building. Make sure you're the one selling, not the one buying.